you know, we're just surrounded by these images of like instant wealth,
Yeah.
right? The flashy cars, crypto millionaires popping up, private jets.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere, and it makes it seem like that's the only way wealth happens, boom, overnight.
Yeah. Or maybe not at all if you don't hit that jackpot. But
Yeah.
the thing is, and this is what our source material for this deep dive really gets into,
Uh-huh.
is that for most people, like real lasting wealth, it's built over years, decades even. And honestly, the process is kind of boring.
It really is. And that's what we want to unpack today. Cut
Yeah.
through all that hype and show the proven way that ordinary folks actually build serious wealth.
No lottery tickets needed.
Nope. No viral fame, just principles that actually work if you stick with them.
Okay, so let's dive in. Forget the Lambos for a bit, and let's look at building wealth the slow way, based on what these sources found.
Right. And what's really interesting right off the bat is how the material contrasts this get-rich-quick idea with, well, reality. They bring up people like Warren Buffett. Everyone knows he's incredibly wealthy. But the point they make is he became a billionaire much later in life, closer to 60, I think.
Not in his 20s, like the stereotype.
Exactly, not 30. So that immediately tells you something about time frame.
Okay, so it takes time. But why is slow better? I mean, faster sounds good, right?
Yeah.
The sources argue there are real advantages to this slow path.
Oh, huge advantages. They really boil it down to three key things. First, and this is the big one, compound interest.
Right, compounding. We hear that term a lot, but break it down simply, like how the sources explain its power here.
They basically describe it like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts small, but as it rolls, it picks up more snow, getting bigger.
Wow.
And the bigger it gets, the faster it picks up more snow. So your money doesn't just grow, your earnings start earning money too. It's exponential.
So the real growth kicks in later on.
Precisely. That's why time is so critical. It needs years, decades even, for that snowball effect to really take off.
Okay, compounding is advantage number one. What's the second?
Lower risk. It seems obvious, but think about it. Trying to get rich fast often means taking these wild gambles, right?
Yeah, betting big on one thing.
Exactly. One stock, some speculative crypto. It could pay off big, sure. But it could also wipe you out completely.
Oof, yeah.
The slow approach, as these sources lay it out, is usually about diversification, steady progress. You avoid those desperate moves that can just destroy your savings.
So it protects you from, well, potentially catastrophic losses.
Yeah.
And what about the third advantage?
It builds sustainable habits, which sounds a bit, fluffy maybe.
But important.
Incredibly important.
Yeah.
Consistently saving, consistently investing, month after month, year after year, that takes discipline.
You have to stick with it.
Right. And that discipline, that patience, that ability to delay gratification, those aren't just financial skills. They tend to bleed over into other parts of your life. It builds a solid foundation.
That makes sense. And speaking of habits and maybe not acting, there was that wild finding from Fidelity, the source mentioned, about the best investors.
Ah, yes. That one always gets me. The study found that the best performing accounts belonged to people who were, well,
Deceased.
yeah. It sounds dark, but the lesson is incredibly powerful.
What's the takeaway there?
It just highlights how much damage we can do by trying to be too clever, by panicking during market dips, by trying to jump in and out.
Chasing returns, timing things.
Exactly. The dead investors, they couldn't do any of that. Their money just sat there untouched, benefiting from long-term market growth and compounding. It's kind of the ultimate proof that sometimes doing nothing is the best strategy.
Wow. Okay, so the why is pretty compelling. Compounding, lower risk, good habits, and maybe just leaving it alone. So how do we actually do it? The sources give a practical plan, right?
But they do. They lay out a sort of 5-step blueprint based on what works for long-term wealth builders. And step 1 is fundamental. Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. Okay, what does that mean in practice? I think they mentioned a percentage.
Yeah, the 20% rule comes up. The idea is to automatically save, ideally, around 20% of every single paycheck.
Automatically. Key word there.
Crucial. Set it up so that money moves to your savings or investment account before you even see it in your main account. Treat it like your rent or mortgage payment. It just has to happen.
Takes the willpower out of it each month.
Yeah.
That's step 1. Automate savings. What's step 2?
Invest that money simply. The sources really push what they call a set and forget strategy, and that usually means index funds.
Okay, so not trying to find the next big stock.
Nope. Forget trying to beat the market. The idea here is to just own the market, or a big slice of it.
How do you do that?
They give examples like the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. The ticker is VOO. It basically holds small pieces of the 500 biggest companies in the U.S.
So you're diversified instantly.
Exactly. It's low cost, super diversified, and historically something like the S&P 500 has returned around 10% per year, averaged out over the long term. It's designed for this kind of slow, steady approach.
Simple, broad, let it ride. Okay, makes sense. What's step 3?
This one's about understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. You need to focus your energy on owning appreciating assets.
Things that go up in value.
Right, or things that put money in your pocket. So yeah, stocks, maybe real estate that gains value or provides rental income, owning a piece of a business.
And liabilities are the opposite.
Pretty much. Things that generally lose value over time or actively cost you money to own. Think consumer debt, like credit cards, maybe a fancy car that drops in value the second you drive it off the lot.
Or just accumulating stuff that needs maintenance and insurance.
Exactly. The sources stress this shift. Focus on acquiring things that make you money or grow in value, not things that just cost you money.
That feels like a mindset shift, really. Which kind of leads into the 4th point, which I imagine trips a lot of people up.
Oh, definitely. Avoiding lifestyle inflation. This is a huge one.
Explain that. What is it?
It's when your income goes up. You get a raise, switch jobs. Maybe you go from making $50K a year to $100K.
Nice problem to have.
Right. But what do most people do? They immediately upgrade their spending to match. Bigger apartment, newer car, fancier vacations, more eating out.
Living right up to that new paycheck.
Precisely. And the sources are really clear. Don't do that, or at least don't do it proportionally. If your income doubles, your investing should increase significantly, maybe double, while your lifestyle spending only creeps up a little, if at all.
So you capture that difference.
Yes, that gap between your rising income and your relatively stable expenses, that's pure fuel for accelerating your wealth building.
That's powerful. Okay, save first, invest simply, own assets, avoid lifestyle inflation. What's the last step?
It's maybe the simplest, but also the hardest. Repeat for 10 plus years. Keep going. Just keep going. Consistency over a long period. The sources actually point out that the real magic, as they call it, often starts happening after year 7.
Why then?
Because that's when the compounding effect really starts to become noticeable. Your earnings are starting to generate significant earnings of their own. It gets exciting.
Wow.
But they also mention a really critical statistic. Most people quit at year 2.
Year 2. That's barely getting started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it feels slow at first. Saving a couple $100 a month. You don't feel rich after 2 years. It's easy to get discouraged or distracted by the next shiny thing.
So patience is absolutely key.
It's everything. Pushing through those early, kind of boring years is what unlocks that incredible long-term growth.
And didn't the sources have a sort of pro tip example to illustrate that, putting numbers on it?
They did, a really motivating one. They showed how saving just $500 a month.
Okay, $500.
Consistently, and getting that historical average 10% annual return we talked about, over time, that can grow to over $1.1 million.
Wow. $500 a month turns into over $1 million. How long are we talking here, roughly?
Well, hitting that $1.1 million mark at 10% takes, a ballpark around 30 to 35 years.
Okay, so it's definitely not overnight.
Definitely not. That's why step 5 is repeat for 10 plus years. And that $500 feels small month to month, maybe even boring, like you said. But you stack up enough of those boring months and years, and the end result is, well, life-changing.
It really shows the power of that consistency.
Yeah.
And if anyone listening is still thinking, yeah, but can normal people really do this? The sources had some amazing real-world stories.
Oh, these are the best, yeah. Stories of just everyday individuals who ended up millionaires using exactly this kind of boring approach.
Like Ronald Reed, the janitor.
Incredible story. Worked as a janitor and gas station attendant, lived frugally his whole life, but he consistently invested small amounts in solid, dividend-paying stocks.
For decades.
For decades. When he passed away, people were stunned to find out he'd accumulated an $8 million fortune. No complex strategies, just saving and investing year after year.
Amazing. And then there was Grace Groner.
Another fantastic example. She worked as a secretary for Abbott Labs. Back in the 1930s, she bought just $180 worth of Abbott stock.
$180. That's it?
That was it. And the key thing, she apparently never sold a single share. She just held it, reinvested the
Now
dividends,
let it compound?
and let it compound for over 70 years. When she died in 2010, that initial $180 investment was worth $7 million.
That's just staggering. Patience personified.
It really is. And it wasn't just unique individuals. The sources also mention examples like, say, postal workers.
Mail carriers, how?
Through their workplace retirement plan, the Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP, it offers really good low-cost index fund options, very similar to that VRO fund we talked about.
Oh, okay.
So many of these folks just diligently contributed a portion of their paycheck to these simple funds throughout their entire careers. They weren't financial geniuses. They just used the system available to them consistently.
So the common thread in all these stories is pretty clear, isn't it?
Crystal clear. None of them were chasing hot tips or trying to get rich quick. They ignored the noise, they kept things simple, and they were incredibly consistent over very long time horizons.
They let time do the work.
Exactly. Time and compounding. They proved that the slow, steady path isn't just some theory. It actually works for regular people.
Okay, so bringing this all home for you listening. The big message here seems to be building wealth, real wealth, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. And consistency is your superpower in that marathon.
So to help you put this into practice, the sources suggest something practical, right? A challenge.
Yeah, they frame it as the 1% better challenge. It's designed to just get you started or maybe reinforce what you're already doing.
Okay, I like a challenge. What are the steps?
First step is just getting the basics in place. If you don't already have one, you need to open a brokerage account.
Places like Fidelity, Vanguard, those kinds of places.
Yep, those are common examples. Low-cost providers are generally good for this strategy. So step 1, get the account open.
Got it. Then what?
Step 2, set up automatic investments. Start small if you need to, maybe just $100 a month.
Okay, manageable.
And put it into a broad index fund like VOO or a similar total market fund. The key is automatic. Set it and forget it, like we discussed. Pay yourself first.
Right. Automate the consistency. Okay. Account automatic investment. What's the 1% better part?
This is the clever bit. Commit to increasing that automatic monthly investment by just 1% each year.
Only 1%.
Only 1%. So if you start at $100 a month, next year you bump it to $101. The year after, it's $102.01. It sounds tiny, right?
Almost nothing.
Exactly. But it does two things. One, it gently increases your savings rate over time without feeling painful. Two, it builds the habit of increasing your savings. As your income hopefully grows over the years, that 1% becomes easier, and maybe you can increase it even more.
It's like building momentum almost invisibly.
Yeah.
I like that. The sources also mentioned acknowledging your commitment somehow.
Yeah, like a little mental trick, maybe just telling yourself or even writing down that you're committed to the slow and steady path.
Why does that help?
It's about reinforcing your decision. When you see the next crypto craze or meme stock promising instant riches, reminding yourself that you've chosen a different, more reliable path can help you stay the course.
That makes sense. So remember that final thought from the sources. It's not really about getting rich quick. That can be fragile.
Right. The real goal is building wealth that lasts. Getting rich is one thing. Staying rich, building that long-term security, that comes from the process.
From embracing the boring, consistent, long-term stuff we talked about.
Exactly. That's where the real sustainable success lies.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe just take a second to think, what's one small thing, one consistent step you could take today to start, or maybe continue, your own slow and steady wealth journey?